Alright, so I promised some quick and easy mods that you can make to this rig. So the first one is, I kind of already did it already, but I added the joints to a display group here. So if you do the normal rig, I'm going to delete that. All you'd want to do is grab this joints no touch group, or the joint itself. I'm going to do the group. And then you just come over here and you create a new display layer, label it joints, wahaha. And then you should be good to go to toggle those joints all on and off. So that's all I did for that. I still did something weird to, oh, I see what I did. I had, ooh, I see what happened. Okay, this is actually a change that you should totally make to this rig. It seems like these controllers are not zeroed correctly. So they basically, the transformations weren't frozen. So if you zero it out, they go back to a place where they shouldn't have originally been. In this case, hiked up really crazy here. So what I'm going to do is just grab the offending controller. Where was it? I think it was this dude. But that should be sort of chilling down here on the origin. So what I did is just held down I held down X, as in Xanadu, question mark. I held down X to go ahead and just snap that to the origin. And what I'm going to do is right click and do freeze translate. And that should fix the issue, so if you're doing stuff in the future and you're moving stuff around, you can zero that out and it's going to take your rig back to the default position without exploding it. So that is definitely a thing that you should do. And let's see, some other stuff that you can do if you're so inclined. So right now, I consider this to be personal, like bad habits, whatever. But right now, if you hide the controls, the joints also get hidden at the same time, which is not something that I personally like. Sometimes I want to see the joints or work on them without having the controls in the way. So what I'm going to do here is go through, and this is basically because the control group itself is tied to this master control, and the joints are parented under the master control. So what I'm going to do is grab, right-click on my controls group, select objects, and then do remove selected objects. So then the controls group is basically empty at this point. You could have also just deleted the group. But what I'm going to do is grab these specific controls and right-click and do add selected objects. So that way it'll hide, it doesn't hide the master control, which is incidentally why I really hate master controls, personal preference. But then you should be able to hide the controls and still access the skeleton, so that's an option that you can do. And if you're weird like me, and some of the stuff that, like the spine curves and like the IK handle, like I don't need to work with them enough for a rig that's like this relatively simple. So I just hide them in the outliner if I ever for some reason need them. It's 2 button clicks away. So the other thing that I'm going to do is, like I said, I really detest these master controls. I will save this though really quick. So I really hate these master controls. What I'm going to do is just click on, make sure nothing's selected, do Control-G to make a random null group, master group, call that master group, and then I'm just going to drag that up under the flour sack and grab all of this stuff that was previously under my master control, and I'm just going to dump that under master group, hide the control, and then what we should be able to do, so the display layers are going to work the exact same way, but what we can now do is grab this master group and move this around. Whoop, I did something weird there. There's probably something I think hooked up. I didn't build this rig, so I think there's something maybe hooked up to the master control that is causing this most unusual of deformations. So that's the thing that I would need to look into. So maybe actually don't do this for this particular rig, but theoretically, you'd have this master group or this little null group. You can move it, scale it, whatever, and then leave it there, and as you animate the character, this is always there, but you just don't have the extra thing to select. So in this case, it seems, actually recommend not doing that. I tried, but that is basically most of the modifications that I would recommend for this particular rig. The other thing you can do, incidentally, you don't modify the UVs on this. If you modify UVs after a skin is bound to a rig, it's going to get real weird whenever you move the character. But these are the UVs. They should be laid out to do a pretty reasonable little sack animation or whatever. If you want, you can unbind and rebind the, like, unbind the skin, re-UV it however you want to texture it, and then rebind it. That's a whole lot of work, and I don't think it's probably not worth it for this, honestly. But you can, if you want, just for the love of God, do not edit the UVs while the rig is existing. But anywho, that's mostly mods that you can do to the rig. Hopefully fairly straightforward. But yeah,